Good morning. Welcome to Ramsey Canyon. Thank you guys all for being here this morning. My name is Mark Preddy. I'm the naturalist here at the Nature Conservancy's Ramsey Canyon Preserve. And this morning we're going to do a general guided nature walk. We're going to be out for between 2 and 3 hours. You're welcome to stay for as much or as little as you would like. We'll go a total distance of about a mile, not too far, taking our time, stopping here and there, taking some breaks, looking, listening, learning about the flora and fauna here. We should see some pretty good wildlife. So again, we'll take our time, and we're going to do really a little bit of everything. So we'll certainly be doing some birding, also be talking about, learning about plants, mammals, reptiles, insects as well. And as we're talking about the different plants and animals here, what will underlie it all, what we'll really be focusing on, are the relationships that are taking place between the different critters here. We'll try to tie their stories together. We'll tie them to the story of the conservation work that the Nature Conservancy is doing here on the preserve, particularly restoration ecology. We'll also try to tie them into our lives, make them personal, make them meaningful, and see how the way that we live our lives, the decisions that we make, affect the natural world as well, and vice versa. So relationships will be a very, very large theme. Here in southeastern Arizona, this is one of the most biologically rich areas in the country. Very, very special place. There are 4 magic ingredients that come together in a unique way right here, unlike any other place on Earth. And I'll let you know what those 4 magic ingredients are. We'll revisit them as we proceed up the trail, and we'll see examples of them in the different species that we encounter. So our first ingredient is an interesting ecological overlap of 4 very different bioregions. 4 different regions that have their own unique complement of plants and animals, their own unique species mix. And those 4 regions are the Sierra Madre, a large mountain range in Mexico to the south of us, the Rocky Mountains, a large mountain range to the north of us, the Sonoran Desert to our west, and the Chihuahuan Desert to our east. So imagine us being at the center of a 4-leaf clover where the leaves all overlap. The leaves are all different, all distinct. Species from each of those areas can all be found here. And they can be found amidst a landscape that reflects our second ingredient. And that's a landscape of great topographic diversity. A basin and range landscape with low, warm, dry deserts down about 2,000 feet in the case of Tucson, with sky island mountain ranges separating the various basins, and cool, moist, green wooded peaks going up to almost 11,000 feet. So great elevational gradient gives you great climate variation as well as great plant community variation. So these desert species, Sonoran and Chihuahuan, or mountain species, Sierra Madre or Rocky Mountains, are going to find just the right elevation where they can slip into the right plant community, the right climate. So topographic diversity and bioregional overlap, 2 key elements adding to the mix of biological diversity in this area. We're starting to get this big picture outlook of not only the connections in nature, but how our lives impact and are impacted by nature and the services that nature provides. We have just 300 acres here. We're in a mountain range of several 100,000 acres, which is part of a basin at the bottom of which is the San Pedro River, and the basin is millions of acres in size. So doing restoration work, doing some education here on this 300 acres, is it really making a big difference in terms of regional biodiversity protection? In some way it is. In another way, it really is. The Conservancy is working not only here at Ramsey Canyon, but in most of its other preserves, working beyond the boundaries of the preserve, using nature as a mirror, looking at large-scale connections over large expanses of space, over large expanses of time, seeing how things are connected, and emulating that in a sense, and working over large landscapes. So we're working locally with many different partners. the Forest Service, the Department of Defense in Fort Huachuca, the local community as well, and working with sharing information about riparian and aquatic restoration, about bringing back fire as a natural process in the woodland ecosystems, which has effects on the quality and quantity of water that comes out of our watershed, and working throughout the basin to try to protect one of the most critical relationships that we have in this valley, and that's the hydrologic relationship. The sponge, the filter, the mountain watershed, the Huachuca Mountains, is connected to a valley aquifer that keeps me and the other 50,000 people who live in this basin alive. It also feeds directly into the San Pedro River. This time of year, the river has a small flow of water, but it's water in the desert. It's a desert oasis. The river is a critical migratory corridor for millions of migratory birds, and it needs the same groundwater that I use that comes out of my faucet. As our community has grown, we've gotten to the point where we're now overdrafting our aquifer, putting not only the quality and quantity of water in the basin at risk for future generations in the human community, but putting the San Pedro River at risk as well. The San Pedro is the top of the water table. We've only got a few feet to spare before we lose the aquatic habitat, we lose the riparian habitat, we lose a migratory corridor for birds that has hemispheric influence. Birds that are wintering in South America, some breeding here, some heading farther north, some birds from Mexico going as far north as Alaska. So literally throughout the Western Hemisphere, this is an example of a landscape that is a connection for large areas of land, species, and services that nature provides. So that concept of an intact hydrologic cycle that supports both a human community and a very rich biological community is how the Conservancy is trying to work nationwide throughout the world. Starting in one small spot, then looking at the bigger picture. What are we connected to, and how can we work, what strategies can we develop to try to keep those connections intact, preserve the species, the habitats, the services that sustain our lives as well. And of course we do that as a private nonprofit with your support, both financially or in terms of volunteer help. We have many different volunteers here who provide lots and lots of different skills and talents that are allowing us to get the work done that we do. So that's what we're about, preserving biodiversity, the force that helps us sustain our life, working in partnerships, looking at the big picture, learning about how systems are connected, coming up with strategies. The bigger the picture gets, we know we're going to be involving human communities. We're a part of biodiversity. We depend upon it. We have become stewards, not necessarily by choice, but just the way things are. We're stewards for the land, and certainly have some sense of responsibility, if we choose to take it, to protect those species, those habitats, and those services that we need, that our children and grandchildren need as well. So thank you all for joining us this morning, and hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your visit to southeastern Arizona.